I crossed into Belize on foot from the Mexican border with absolutely no plan, hopped on a rundown school bus into a town I didn't intend on going to in the first place, accidentally ended up in the most dangerous part of the country, crossed over into the Guatemalan border for a day on foot and got scammed on the way back. They charged me 928 quetzals. I just gave them all the money I had in my wallet. And I still had an amazing time, so I cannot wait to tell you about my travel in Belize and why you should go. Stunning. So, in case you were interested in going to Belize, let's go ahead and cover the essentials that you might be asking. Belize has its own currency. You might be wondering why it has the Queen of England. Great question. Belize actually used to be a British colony back in the day, and it is the only English-speaking country in Central America. So, if you speak English, you'll get by just fine. In addition to English, Spanish and Belizean Creole are two very popular languages in the area as well. So, when I was traveling around, I had no problem talking in English or Spanish. I don't know any Creole, but the Creole I did learn is pretty dope, so you should look it up. Cost of food and lodging is pretty reasonable. Now, I travel as cheap as I possibly can. I just stayed at different hostels. There she is. Flights into Belize can be a little bit pricey, especially when compared to some of the surrounding countries. That's why I decided to go into Belize on foot. The U.S. Travel Advisory rates Belize at a level 2, mainly because of southern Belize City, which I'll talk about more in a second. Apart from that, totally safe country. Some of the sweetest people I've ever met. With regards to transportation, you're not going to find Uber. I learned that the hard way. There are buses and there are private vans and private shuttles that you can take. I rented a car, but mind you, if you rent a car in Belize, do your research ahead of time. I looked online and there's like all these people who had these really bad experiences with rental cars in Belize. So when you're getting a rental car, I highly recommend to ask your rental car provider if they have insurance and what that insurance covers. Of course, take pictures at all angles of your car. In my case, when I hopped into my car, there was like every single light on the dashboard turned on, and I asked the car agency if that was normal. They told me, oh yeah, no, that's every car in Belize. And I said, okay. Fortunately, I didn't have any issues, but I saw some people online who did. So bear that in mind if you want to rent a car in Belize. So let me tell you about my story and my experience in Belize. I had initially tried getting into Belize a couple years ago, and I had to cancel my trip. It's a long story. This time, however, I happened to be in Mexico, and I realized that I can just cross over the border. I figured it'd be cheaper to do that than to fly in. So getting into Belize was kind of a long story. I was in Holbox, Mexico, and I took a ferry to Chiquila. From Chiquila, I took a van to Cancun, and then from Cancun, I took a bus to Chetumal, and then from Chetumal, I took an Uber to the border. I was very driven just to get into the country. Mind you, just to give you an idea of how I travel, I didn't really have a place to stay. I just knew I needed to get into Belize. So I show up at the border, right? And when I'm there, they ask me to fill out an application form. And as I'm doing that, right as I'm finishing up, there's a school bus that shows up at the border, and this whole host of people comes walking in. So I'm behind like 60 people waiting for my turn. I cross the border, and once I get over there, I'm looking for Uber, and turns out Belize doesn't have Uber. It's really late in the evening, and I don't know what to do. I just knew that I was not going to go back to Mexico. And so I find this one guy who's like outside this building in the parking lot right across the border. And I asked them if I could find a taxi. And they point to the school bus with all the people who had just come through, saying, you got to hop on that, but they're about to leave. So I get on the school bus. And about 5 miles later, I end up in this town called Corozal. Definitely haven't done this before, across the border by land. Walking, it's an adventure. But you see the beach down there, so that's cool. Yeah, see how it goes. Super laid back town. It's a beach town. I find a hotel, stay the night, get some Belizean currency, as you can see here. So I forgot to mention this. They're actually in the process of changing the designs of these things as kind of like an act of decolonization since the Queen passed away. Some people are happy with the new designs, some are not. But I also forgot to mention that one Belizean dollar equates to about 50 cents in US currency and about 0.43 cents in euros. So bear that in mind. While I'm in Corozal, I walk around the town, get some street food. I had ordered a private van for the next day that was supposed to take me to San Ignacio, which is on the other side of the country near the Guatemalan border. As luck would have it, I get up in the morning and I miss my van by like 10 minutes. And guess what shows up? Another one of those school buses. So I asked them if they are going on their way to San Ignacio. And they said, well, no, we can take you to Belize City and then you can transfer from there. I hop on the bus and dude, it is so hot. There's no air conditioning. We just have the windows down. But everyone's happy-go-lucky. It's super chill. As we're heading into Belize City, I'm doing research on the travel advisory of Belize. And I find out, like, the one place you're not really supposed to go is southern Belize City. And that's where my bus dropped me off. I didn't get any footage of southern Belize City. I'll say this, it was kind of rough, but you know, I'm from the 505, baby, Albuquerque. I am the danger everywhere I go. You can't hurt me. But legit, a lot of people who come from the US, when they're traveling, they think, oh my gosh, everything's so dangerous outside the world, especially if it's south of America. If it's south of the United States, like Mexico below. The reality is, man, there are plenty of cities here in the US that are far more dangerous than many places that you'll experience in Latin America. Belize being one of them, at least with my experience. What I'm saying is don't go to southern Belize City. So I'm in southern Belize City. I have a couple hours to spare. I decide to check out the rest of the city. I drop off my luggage at a hostel and I'm walking around the town and it is so hot. And there was nobody in town because I had forgotten that it was actually Emancipation Day. So I need to do more research on this, but my understanding is that because Belize was a British colony, there was a whole lot of slave trafficking going into the area historically. So a lot of Belizeans are of this mixed descent of African and indigenous and English descent. It's pretty cool to find out that it was Emancipation Day. The only downside was that everything was closed. Whatever. Time passes, I get some food in the area, and then I walk back to southern Belize City after I get my luggage, and then I finally hop on another really toasty bus that takes me to San Ignacio. San Ignacio felt like Arkansas. Again, in like the best way possible. I have family from Arkansas, so that's why I say that. While I was there, I got my rental car that I had mentioned, walked around the town. My number one goal was actually to check out these Mayan ruins in the area called Sunantunich. And you could actually climb it as well, and so that was super dope. Highly recommend you go there. The view is absolutely stunning. It was cool. I went to some of the ruins back in Mexico. You're not able to climb some of those ruins anymore. So thank you, Belize. Also, there's this like ferry bridge that you have to get onto in order to cross the river to get to the Mayan ruins. I have never seen that before. That's cool. I've never been on a boat ferry before.
It's like cranking ferry.
That's cool. You guys got a lot of these in Belize, or?
How's that?
You guys got a lot of these in Belize?
This is like one of the only ones left. They're removing all of them, replacing them for bridges. So this would be like the only one.
Oh, wow. I saw that on Drew Binsky's channel when he was talking about his experience in Belize. But you have to like drive your car onto this barge and this dude like rolls this wheel in order to get you across to the other side so you can continue driving. Local food was really good, but I really liked their local beer. Belican beer was my favorite. I think they call it like, yeah, it's the national beer brewed by the Belize Brewing Company. Highly recommend. In addition to this, I found out that San Ignacio was literally like 30 minutes away from the Guatemalan border. Me being me, I'm always trying to check off countries from my list of places I've been to. So I took my car to the border and I proceed to walk on foot across over to Guatemala in Melchor de Mensos. It was interesting heading back over there, you know, getting some Guatemalan currency and then trying a lot of the foods that were in the area. This video is about Belize, so I'll keep it short. This being my first time going into Guatemala, it felt a lot like Mexico. I've been to a few different places in Mexico, and that was exactly the vibe that I got. Guatemala uses Guatemalan quetzals. You can use Belize currency in Melchor de Mensos. I recommend just finding a ATM. By the way, if you go to an ATM in Guatemala, be prepared because the fee to take out money is stupid. But yeah, I walked around Melchor de Menos for about an hour or so, checked out the church that was in the area, got some local food, filmed some of the markets in the area. Then as I was walking back, crossing back, got my fruit. Guatemala over there. Got this river right here. Back to Belize. I was crossing over to the Belize side again. And when I'm putting my passport up to get stamped, they tell me that I didn't have a stamp coming into Guatemala, exiting Belize. And so I asked them like, are you serious? I have the receipt saying that I paid a fee in order to cross over. That's another thing. If you're gonna cross over to Guatemala from Belize, you have to pay, it's like a $20 fee, I think, to exit Belize to go into Guatemala. But make sure you get your passport stamped, because what happened next was this woman, I'm still frustrated about this, dude. She like takes this little piece of paper, writes 928Q, hands it to me and says, that's how many quetzals I have to pay in order to cross. They charged me 928 quetzals. Guatemalan quetzals. I didn't have that, and they were telling me I had to go back to the bank, and so I just gave them all the money I had in my wallet, which was like 70 Belizean dollars, and then I think about 200 quetzals or something like that. Fortunately, there's this Belizean woman who helped me get across, or at least communicate with the Border Patrol. Talked to Border Patrol on the Belizean side, and they managed to get me a stamp for exiting Belize and then entering back in. Dude, I don't even know what to say. I was so upset. Go back home, look it up. Turns out that's actually a common thing that happens at that border crossing. So do your research ahead of time. If they try to make you pay a penalty fee, like anything above like, what would be like $5 or so, like ask to speak with their manager or something like that. That's like the most American thing. Can I speak with your manager? But be prepared. That's really common apparently at that border. So that wasn't fun. And I had planned on going back to Guatemala like shortly after that experience. But fret not, I did get to do some other things that made up for it. For example, I got to drive to Big Rock Falls in Mountain Pine Ridge Forest Reserve. So for those of you guys who want a little bit more nature, you want some waterfalls, you want some trees, maybe some camping, highly recommend doing that. It's not too far from San Ignacio. And to kind of culminate all of this in my time in Belize, I got to drive down the famous Hummingbird Highway. It's a highway that connects the northern part of the country down to the south. Definitely worth driving. Now, there are a lot of other things that I still need to do in Belize. I didn't even go to some of the more famous parts. In fact, my understanding is that most people who go to Belize, if they're not going to San Ignacio, they end up on one of the nearby islands called Ambergris Caye or Caye Caulker. I think that's how you say it. So if you want more of a beach vibe, you should totally go there. Again, I haven't been there. I really want to go to Blue Hole one of these days. That's off the coast. That's a really famous spot. So yeah, that was my short few days in Belize. Totally worth it. Amazing people, incredible culture, beautiful landscape, awful border crossing, at least at Guatemala, and nice trees and Mayan ruins and everything else. And you should totally go. Highly recommend it. So big shout out to all my friends from Belize out there. I actually didn't get to make too many contacts in Belize. So if you're from Belize, feel free to comment below. Tell me what you love most about your country and why people should go there. Until next time, keep traveling, stay adventurous. There's a big wide world out there. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I will catch you on the flip. Ballin', baby.